Hello everybody, and this is SwanDraws. So I am using a completely different computer this time, so hopefully the picture and sound are going to be a lot better than my first video. And today we are going to be going over sketching. So the first comments that I got on my first YouTube, I wanted to address those right away. I have quite a few different ideas planned for other videos, but because this is such a rudimentary video in and of itself, it's so important, I thought that it was a really good one to start out with. So I got a request to talk about sketching and process. And I think that is probably one of the hardest parts of drawing for people, unless you're me, and then it's sitting still and lining and coloring, because both of those things take way more patience than I possess in one finger. So I wanted to start out with the tools while we charge my camera so I can record myself actually working on paper. And the very first thing you need to know is, what are you actually sketching with? Are you a digital artist or are you a traditional artist? Are you both? Which one works better for your process? For me, I started drawing traditionally years and years and years ago. And I, to this day, prefer to do all my sketching traditionally. I don't do a lot of sketching digitally because I feel hampered by the space and by the way that the canvas is shaped. A lot of times, if you're using a screenless monitor like an Intuos or any more standard, not $100,000 tablets, you're not going to be able to see what you're doing. There's a big disconnect between your hand and the screen. I really struggle with that. So I found that for me, the most fluid way to sketch is on paper. So what I usually do is I have a couple of basic tools. There's, of course, the pencil. I actually don't sketch a whole lot with pencils if I'm going to take my work digitally, because I feel like with pencils, people get very hung up on the fact that you can erase. Nothing is worse to sketching process than perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's really important when you're sketching to leave a lot of room for changing things up and for changing your drawing and for putting a lot of other things into it. Your final sketch is going to look a lot different. So pencils can be amazing if you're wanting to finalize a sketch and ink it traditionally, but it can also be your worst enemy because you will get so hung up on the way that nose looks, you'll forget about the rest of the piece. My personal favorite is the ballpoint pen. Things to know about ballpoint pens. You can't just use any ballpoint pen. That sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You want something heavier, something that sits in your hand heavy. My favorite is a stainless steel zebra pencil. I like the 0.05, not the 0.07 or bigger, because those are just really fat and it's hard to draw with them. The tip gets all blobby and gets ink everywhere. The other thing, when you're using a ballpoint pen, to remember, keep a piece of tissue, or if you're like me, wear a shirt you don't care about, and just wipe that tip off so that you don't end up with a bunch of ink all over your hands or globbing onto your paper where you don't want it. For me, I find a ballpoint pen to be fluid and very easy to work with. Every stroke is permanent, and we're going to get into strokes and movement here shortly, because that is so important. If you're using a pencil, you're more likely to use short, stubby little sketches, and you want every line you put on the paper to mean something. When you're using a permanent sort of marking device, you're going to be a lot more confident about the thing you're putting on the paper. As where with a pencil, you can get watery and you can start waffling around about if you actually like that or not, and then you get stuck drawing noses upon noses upon noses, and then you forget that you were going to do anything else on the piece. Other options that I don't personally use a lot, but a lot of people do use, the ink brush pen and the regular round liner pen. So I know that a lot of people like ink brush pens if they're going for more of a flowy kind of, I guess, a lot of Asian ink pen art. If you're doing stuff where you want your lines to be very big, any sort of calligraphy style drawing, and that's a thing. If anybody has seen any of those beautiful watercolor and ink brush drawings, they usually sketch straight up with this baby, and I can't do that. Too messy. And then I have a standard 0.02 multi-liner. I like Copic because I'm a slut for Copic. You can use micron pens. They do run out of ink faster. I've also noticed that their nibs are not as sturdy. So if you are like me and you have club hand and you draw really hard, you are going to mash your tip up into the pen and it's going to be useless. Don't ever use anything smaller than a 0.1. If you use a 0.02, a 0.003, a 0.005, you're going to kill that. It's going to die. It's going to be too thin. Again, confidence in your lines. Big, bold lines are not a bad thing. So, moving on to the next thing is erasers. You've got a sturdy eraser, so just a plain little brick eraser. You've got your kneaded eraser, and then I actually forgot to pull it out because I am winning. My personal favorite for pencil, this bad boy. Yep, you can only find them during the school sales because they are a pain in the neck to get a hold of, apparently. I love stick erasers. I think they're great for detail work. I really like them because I can use them in a more selected area. I find this guy to be way too big if I'm working with pencil and I'm working fine lines, but it's perfect for charcoal figure drawings. Same with, ooh, I just threw that on the ground. Oh yeah. So kneaded erasers have a lot of perks. They can pull a lot of stuff up off of the page. They do get dirty. They are my least favorite eraser. I don't like the way they feel. I don't like the way they make my hand feel. I know some people swear by kneaded erasers, but I'm cheap. I like this one. So, that being said, lines. Before I actually draw anything, sketch process is one of the most difficult things to do because you get so nervous about the end product. Now, there is a book that I recommend to everybody to purchase if you are learning how to sketch. It's actually in my backpack right beside me because it goes everywhere with me. This book is Force, and it will teach you everything you need to know about sketching fluid, dynamic poses. When you are drawing, the minute you become focused on what you are producing and not the process of producing, you've already lost. The entire purpose of drawing is to enjoy the moment. If you aren't in love with the process, you're never going to love your final piece. And that's not to say that you're not going to make mistakes, but you have to be open to the fact that mistakes could happen, which is why I like the ballpoint pen. You have to commit. Once that line's on the paper, you have to make it work. And I'd rather flip a page over and start completely from scratch than spend 3 hours erasing the same details. Because eventually your pose is going to become so rigid and so stiff that it's going to look silly. Fluidity, dynamic fluidity is so important in art. The line of motion is what makes your drawing come alive. So when you are working and you are sketching, you want to keep your pose open. You want to keep your hand open. You don't want to clench up. You don't want to hunch up. You don't want to get this close to your paper. If your nose is touching the paper, you need to go get a cup of coffee and take a break. So what I would recommend to start out is the classic. I know tons of people have probably heard this, but open your shoulders, do rotational stretches with your arms, rotate your wrist. Remember, if you have carpal tunnel, like I do, or you have, arthritis, like I do, do your hand stretches. Pull your hand back, pull your thumb out, hand stretches. Everybody's done that, seen it on Tumblr. They rotate. Don't kill your hands. It's important. You kill this, none of these matter. So once you are all warmed up, the key to a good basic sketch drawing is staying open, staying loose, and staying confident. I guess that is the best way to describe it. The other important thing is if you start getting angry and frustrated, you are toast. You are not supposed to want to throw your paper out the window. If you are at that point, it's probably best to put it down and walk away for a while or try to do something different. There's the beautiful word iteration. If you don't like the first drawing, draw it again. If you don't like the second drawing, draw it again. Sometimes I will draw one drawing 4 or 5 times before I actually like the sketch I'm working with. The other big important thing about drawing and sketching and putting your ideas down on paper, always, always, always do warm-up drawings. They don't matter. You don't have to post them. They aren't important to anything. You don't owe anybody any of it. You just sit down. It could just be swirly circles, but always warm up, because once you've gotten warmed up, your art brain is going to click on. And my other big suggestions for if you are drawing and you are sketching specifically, which is the structural foundation for all of your work, do not watch television. Do not watch YouTube. Do not watch anything. Don't have background noise on. Music is fun. I personally prefer things that don't have words. You don't want to be distracted, because if you're looking up every 5 seconds to look at what's on your TV while you're drawing, you're never going to find your zone. And everybody who draws knows what I mean when I say zone. It's that Zen place, that feng shui, amazing point in which you become so absorbed in the piece you're working on, literally the entire world melts away. Everybody can hit it. It's a possibility. You just have to keep your mind open and not turn on your TV. So remember, you and your artwork are a dance. And if you interrupt that dance, you're going to lose focus. And it's really important to stay focused on what you are doing. Multitasking is great, but I would recommend just shutting Tumblr, shutting all your junk that you're working on. The other thing, this is also really important. Reference pictures are great, but try to draw before you get the reference picture out. Try to draw what you see in your head first. Even if it's completely wrong and you never ever touch the sketch again, it's a great way to warm up, and you'll be surprised what you know. Don't rely on reference pictures to teach yourself. Trust your own intuitive brain. Trust your own eye. Because if you can't make what's in here come out onto your hand, it doesn't matter how many pictures you trace off the internet, you're going to keep having that disconnect. The trick with good sketching is to make your hand and your brain work together. And that is probably the hardest part of drawing, because the brain is always coming up with new things and your hand is always trying to catch up. And that process from the brain, from the eye to the brain to the hand to the page, is this big circle that's always changing. And if you add other elements like YouTube and distractions and Pinterest and your cat and all of these other things in there, you're going to have way more disconnect as to what comes out on your paper. So remember, stay focused, get rid of all of your distractions, pick your tool of choice. I would recommend for everybody starting this process with me, go find a ballpoint pen. Trust me on this, it'll be fun. You probably will hate me by the end of the video, but it's worth it. I guarantee it. So after this, I'm going to actually upload this process as a separate YouTube video. So go ahead and click on part 2. Part 2 will be the actual paper sketch. I will be doing a paper sketch tutorial, and I will do a digital sketch tutorial. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, subscribe. Sorry, I am a total mess today. It's been a day. So yeah, I'm going to see if my camera has any charge. Get my lovely camera lady to come in here and hold the camera for me. And we are going to move on to part 2, and I'm going to stop clicking this pen. Thanks. Bye.